In 2025, the world of cycling has seen draw-dropping attacks, national heroes, era-defining moments, and even protests on the world stage. Today, we're racing through the biggest stories from both men's and women's cycling in 2025. We're looking at the records that have been broken, the wins that marked history, and also looking at what could be coming in 2026. Let's get on with the video. And if you do like my content and you want to see more every single week, please drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave any comments on content you would like to see in the future. Now let's get underway. First up, we're going to look at the men's Grand Tours this year, the Giro d'Italia, Tour de France, and the Vuelta a España. And this year was an extremely fascinating one, as each Grand Tour produced a different unique story. First off, we're going to look at the Tour de France, where Tadej Pogacar once again dominated in the biggest event in cycling. The Slovenian walked away with the Maillot Jaune with 4 race wins and won by over 4 minutes. His ruthless and aggressive riding showed everyone why he is still the rider to be in 3-week Grand Tours. Alongside Tadej's wonderful win in yellow, there were also some huge stories at the Tour this year as well. Remco Evenepoel, Mathieu van der Poel and Jasper Philipsen all had to abandon from the Tour. One of the most interesting battles this year at the Tour de France was for the white jersey between Florian Leibowitz and Oscar Onley. And another standout rider from the British Isles as well, who was also a big part of the Tour de France this year, was Ben Healy. 2 of the biggest wins in the Tour came on the Queen stage from Ben O'Connor in a brilliant redemption ride, and also from Valentin Paré-Pantra on the Mont Ventoux. UAE almost won the first Grand Tour of the year as well, with Isaac Del Toro, the young Mexican, at the Giro d'Italia. However, the young rider refused to ride with former Giro winner Richard Carapaz, which allowed Simon Yates to ride up the road to win the Giro d'Italia on the penultimate day. This was one of the most remarkable Grand Tour victories in recent memory and showed that Adam Yates is still a GC favourite. Speaking of Brits on Grand Tour podiums, Tom Pidcock finished 3rd at this year's Vuelta a España, just behind João Almeida and Jonas Vingegaard. But the news surrounding this year's Tour of Spain focused on anything but the racing, as Israel's involvement with Team Premier Tech sparked protests by pro-Palestinians on the side of the roads. This culminated in the final day in Madrid being disrupted due to their big amount of protests. This year, all 3 Grand Tours were unique in their own different way, but there was one thing that stayed the same, and that was that the 2 biggest teams in the sport of cycling, that being Visma Lease Bike and UAE Team Emirates, both still stood at the top, with Visma Lease Bike taking 2 wins with Yates and Vingegaard, and UAE Team Emirates taking 1 win with Tadej Pogacar. Talking of Visma Lease Bike Grand Tour winners, we have Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who won the 2025 Women's Tour de France in dominating style. The home hero produced one of the most talked about performances of the year, fired up French crowds on the side of the roads and shot TV audiences through the roof. At the Giro Don, Elisa Longo Borghini defended her title with grit and tactical savvy, reaffirming that the mix of a classics rider and a stage rider can still perform well in week-long races. But beyond the Grand Tours, the women's calendar grew deeper. We saw bigger crowds, more TV windows, and larger team investment. In 2025, women's cycling has developed massively, and we've seen real structural progress. And because of this, the races, the audiences, and the personalities are all aligning. If the Grand Tours are about endurance, the Classics are about chaos, and 2025 gave us plenty of it. On the men's side, the Spring Classics were a roller coaster, and from March through to April, Mathieu van der Poel seemed untouchable. And to round out the year, Tadej Pogacar once again won at Il Lombardia, this time for a 5th consecutive year. The 2025 Women's Classic season was one for the ages, with surprise triumphs and dominant victories, and also one rider making history. Wearing her World Championship rainbow bands, Lotte Kopecky cemented her name in women's cycling history with a 3rd victory at the Tour of Flanders. But she wasn't the only star, as this season saw a showcase of explosive talent. Lorena Wiebes of SD Work took 2 major victories this season. And before her successful Tour de France campaign, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot provided a masterclass on the grueling cobbles of Paris-Roubaix. Demi Vollering also powered to victory at the dusty Strade Bianche. And we can't forget the firepower of Elisa Longo Borghini at Dwars d'Or Vlaanderen, or even the incredible performance from Puck Peters at La Flèche Wallonne. And just when you thought the season had peaked, new faces came through. Young riders like Shirin Van Amroy and Pfeiffer Georgi secured major top 10s in their campaigns, proving that they can take the fight to the biggest names in the sport. Ultimately, the 2025 Classics contained everything that cycling fans want: mud, heartbreak, brilliance and history, proving that as one-day classics are still one of the most unpredictable bits of magic in sport. And just as the cycling calendar was coming to a close, we had one of the most anticipated events in cycling history, the 2025 Cycling World Championships in Rwanda, which I also spoke about in another video which I've done, which you can watch by clicking the link above my head somewhere. This was the first time the World Championships of Cycling were held in Africa, and the fans were absolutely electric. The Rwandan crowd turned out in force. They lined up on every climb, every descent, every straight, showing just how global the sport has become. On the men's side, it was a surprise to absolutely nobody that Tadej Pogacar absolutely dominated, capping off an incredible year that he has had. In the women's race in Rwanda, Madeleine Valliere-Mille made history, becoming the first Canadian to win the Women's Cycling World Championships. Beyond the results, Rwanda's hosting of the Worlds was a statement. It was a showcase of African cycling potential, new investment, and where cycling could grow big next. In cycling, records matter because they're a show of progress, and 2025 had a fair few headline grabbers. Riders pushed hour records and time trial benchmarks, and young riders exploded onto the scene with great wins. In the hour record arena, Vittorio Bussi set an incredible record of cycling 50.5 kilometers in just 60 minutes. On the road, Isaac Del Toro's season was a breakout one, piling up multiple wins and even putting himself in contention for the Giro d'Italia. Furthermore, riders like Josh Tarling proved that they were a force to be reckoned with in the future in the world of time trialling. Between hour records and teenage breakouts, 2025 was a nod to tradition as well as a launchpad for the next generation. But unfortunately in 2025, not everything was sunshine and flowers. La Vuelta's Madrid finale this year was cancelled amid protests. This underlined how geopolitical and social issues can spill directly into race day and rider safety, an unforgettable truth that organisers must grapple with. The incident sparked debate about team participation, sponsorship visibility, and how organisers handled safety and freedom of speech. 2025 will also see us leave some of cycling's biggest names in the past, with retirees including Geraint Thomas and Ellen van Dijk. Thomas won the Tour de France in 2018, and the Welshman had an emotional goodbye at the Tour of Britain earlier on this year. Ellen van Dijk signed off her 20-year career in style, taking a victory in her final ever time trial. But among these retirements also opens up massive opportunities for a younger generation, or new riders to fill the spots of the old greats. Now let's look at what trends shaped the 2025 season and what they could mean heading into 2026. The first trend that we saw was that depth in teams is crucial. And into 2026, this could be crucial for the likes of Remco Evenepoel, because if he doesn't have good domestics around him, he won't be able to challenge the likes of UAE. Secondly, throughout 2025, we saw a depth of calendar growth in women's cycling. This boost in exposure leads to stronger investment and a deeper professional pipeline. Furthermore, riders from multiple disciplines are now conquering different areas of the sport, with riders like Ferrand-Prévot and Tom Pidcock showcasing that success across multiple disciplines is a viable career option. The fourth item to speak about on this list is that safety and geopolitics should be crucial when planning out a race route. After the issues at La Vuelta this year, it showcased that the UCI clearly need to plan more for protests and disruptions on the side of the roads. And the final trend to look at is the youth surge in the sport. Riders like Isaac Del Toro shone at the Giro d'Italia this year, and the white jersey battle at the Tour de France was perhaps the most brilliant spectacle that we had at this year's event. Florian Leibowitz and Oscar Onley put on an absolute masterclass for us this year at the Tour de France, and showed us that they can easily step up to the big time for 2026. Putting all of these trends together and looking at the retirements and the transfers that we see between 2025 and 2026 could mean that the next season of cycling could be the strangest and most unpredictable one yet. And with the geopolitical state of the world right now, it could be even harder for race routes to be organised by the UCI. With multiple teams bolstering their squads both across the men's and the women's side of the sport, we could see different race winners at every single event. Alongside this, women's cycling is getting more traction than ever before, so we could see more sponsorship and more women's cycling on our televisions. Before I round out this video, let's look at some predictions for the 2026 cycling season. Firstly, and a surprise to no one, I can see Tadej Pogacar once again lifting the Tour de France crown, as well as either the Giro or the Vuelta, which is more likely to be the latter as he didn't compete there this year. Alongside this, I also seeing him join Peter Sagan in becoming one of only 2 riders to consecutively win the World Championships 3 times. And with Pogacar pulling out of the Vuelta this year, I can see him winning that this year, which leaves a spot open for the Giro d'Italia, where I think we will see a huge new winner. I think either we will see Isaac Del Toro make up for his mishaps at last year's event, or we might even see an Oscar Onley or Florian Leibowitz win at the Giro. Secondly, I think Ferrand-Prévot's success this year will shine a massive light on the Women's Tour de France next year, and the French media attention will be all over her. Although I don't see her winning the Women's Tour de France next year, as I think we could see a surprise winner, I think that she will be the face of women's cycling for 2026. And for my final prediction, despite all the hype around Remco Evenepoel's move to Ineos Grenadiers, I think it's going to be a massive fail for 2026. Hopefully in 2027 it will come better for him, but next year I don't think it'll be an easy start. 2025 had it all. Records, rivalries, and moments we'll be replaying for years. The road to 2026 is wide open for area of opportunity, and the history books are already starting to be written. From the Cobbles to Kigali, the sport showed this year how powerful cycling has become. If you did like this video, please subscribe to the channel and drop the video a like, and leave any comments on what you think is going to happen in 2026 in the wild world of cycling. And until next week, have a good one.